environment, like if you take X, for example, where it's just the free flow of ignorance, where people feel that the First Amendment means that you question absolutely everything, which is fine, but you don't question science with ignorance, right? You question science with fact. And if someone, I think it's the definition of intelligence when someone challenges your point of view with fact and you adapt. Correct. Right. That is what intelligence means.
If you question it, accept an answer.
Correct. The polar opposite, though, is someone challenges your presumption with fact and you double down. That is the fundamental definition of ignorance.
Yeah.
And we have more of the latter than the former.
And I'm just trying to, I don't want to blame Donald Trump for all of our
No. First of all, Donald Trump is not the cause of any of this.
I'm trying to figure out what is the cause of it. What made so many people in this country averse to facts? Like was talking with my colleague. Well, see, I get I get opposing Barack Obama. I don't get wanting to drink raw milk. You see what I'm saying? Like,
okay, but looking up at the sun during the middle of a lunar eclipse or whatever type of eclipse it was, where Donald Trump took his solar eclipse.
Yes.
Like where he took his glasses off and looked, that is special.
Yes.
Okay. Drinking or taking dewormer.
Yes, and fighting for it.
Yes, that's a special level of stupid. But this culture of anti-intellectualism came as a reaction to 2028.
You think so? Because he was himself an intellectual, or because he was black, or both?
All of the above. I think that there was this. I think that when this black man got elected, people came out of the woodworks and were like, "Wait a minute now. Like, what are we doing? How did this happen?" I mean, you've seen record turnout. Barack Obama won with 65 million votes. Donald Trump
got 74.
Correct. I mean, we're just talking about people who, and the country hasn't grown exponentially fast in that type of, to expect that type of growth would happen if you look at the just true raw data set. So yeah, no, I blame Barack Obama for a lot of this.
Blame him?
Oh, I tell him that.
What does he say in response?
He probably says, "Okay, we give you a deeply intellectual answer as to why." I think that it's funny because I don't say it's his fault, but I do blame him for this, and I blame everything that he stood for, and I blame the wave that he brought in, and I blame you had this reaction. I mean, with every amount of progress Black folk have made in this country, we've been counteracted with this amazing, fierce opposition and regression.
I was going to say that reading your book was a reminder of how many people treat Black people succeeding as a problem that needs to be solved.
Well, the best line I had in the book was white supremacy is defined as when you feel equality is oppression.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, that was when I wrote that, I was like, damn, I'm James Baldwin. You can't tell me I'm not James Baldwin when I put that down on paper. Like if you feel like equality is oppression, then that's the definition of white supremacy. That is what it is. And there are a lot of people in this country. I mean, you have to realize just the and we'll get into it as we go, but for every Reconstruction, just think about the counteraction against those periods of Reconstruction. Think about the fierce headwinds.
Mm-hmm.
And how after those Reconstructions, there was a great deal of frustration, like I'm here today.
Yeah.
That you just sit in that frustration. So every amount of progress you make as a Black person in this country, you're met head on.
It's
Barack Obama.
I mean, it's indisputable, but it is also just like, how do you, like, what do you do? That's kind of the frustration that I think is evident in the world.
Well, I mean, I'm not too concerned about Black folk in terms of what do you do, because then it gets to the core and it gets to the root element of who we are. And there are 3 words in which I define Black people. And that's resilient, faithful, And then the other word is a little shaky as we get older and generations pass, but that's grace. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that last word of grace, but we're very resilient. And when we're stripped of everything, we're always very faithful.
Yeah.
Always very faithful. But that grace is something that we have become a little hot and cold towards.
How are you feeling now about the hope for this multicultural democracy, this experiment that is the United States?
I'm more concerned for Black men in this participatory democracy because I feel like we're getting left behind than any other group.
In what way in particular?
I just feel like for a long period of time, Black men have not been spoken to, which I write about in that book. The headlights have been on, the warning lights have been on for a long period of time. And and you can't blame them, but instead of re-engaging at another level or knocking harder at the door, we just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm going to deal with my own problems, my own house, and fix my own world. If you don't want to help me, if government doesn't want to help me, if Kamala or Donald don't want to help me, if Mike Johnson or King Jeffries, if I don't feel that in my life, then I have to take control and take the reins myself. And what happens is we forget that democracy is participatory. And by not participating, by not engaging, we dig ourselves a deeper hole. Because in the South, as you know, being a Southern boy, we had these sayings. And one of the sayings that we have in South Carolina is that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
You said people stopped engaging Black men. Did Black men, and I'm not trying to allot blame here, I'm trying to figure out, like, what moment are we talking about?
I think you see it, the emergence of black girl magic. I think that someone was ingenious in creating divides and splits in our own families and households. And I think that there was a great deal of promise, and rightfully so, giving to Black girl magic and the rise thereof, because women were the backbone, or are the backbone of the Democratic Party. And
welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. And we're here breaking down this interesting conversation I found with the brother Bakari Sellers. Just scrolling through YouTube, just watching stuff, and the title caught me because it was like Bakari Sellers gives like one of the greatest definitions of racism, something like that. And so, as you can see, he gave himself kudos in the clip about his line on racism, being that if you think that equality is oppression, then you might be a white supremacist. Of course, that's my rendition of it, but basically what he said. But it's a lot of stuff that he covered in that 7-minute clip, and we're gonna get into it because it starts with the ignorance in America, or what they call the age of anti-intellectualism. And he's saying he believes the anti-intellectualism is a reaction to Barack Obama. And that's what kind of spurred a platform, or even an environment for Donald Trump to not only be elected, but to be elected in the fashion in which he is elected. He also talked about white supremacy constantly opposing Black progress. And I'm like, yeah, that's what America does. And so, that's what America does. And so he hinted at, but brought it back when he was talking about, so what do we do? What do we do about the constant negation to our progress here in America? He mentioned 3 words: resilient, faithful, and grace are the attributes that he would give us. As we get into it further, I give you that's an equation. Let me give you the answer to that equation. Then he's also talking about, he also mentioned that when we are stripped of everything, we remain faithful. And I'm just trying to figure out what we remain faithful to. Also talked about a multicultural democracy leaving Black men behind. Black men are ignored and left behind in this so-called multicultural democracy that we're in. And so, and two of the last points he talked about. So basically, in this multicultural democracy that's leaving Black men behind, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And then he ended it off by talking about the black girl magic and how he believes that the black girl magic helped to divide the black community, helped to further divide the black community because the black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party. So yeah, I took notes. So that's how we did it. And before we get into it, remember to like this video, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure as many people as possible see these videos because, you know, we putting our heart and our soul into these videos, making sure that we can help to uplift our community. So like, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure after the show you visit fetlifestation.com to support Professor Carlton Jones. Make sure you go to thepax.org to support all three of us that Pat led that effort. And make sure you go to ontheshoulders1.com. So support all of us in any way you want to support us in any way is in the description. And we appreciate all the love and support. So Pat, man, what do you think about this clip from Bakari Sellers? He said a lot. He said a lot of things and I covered a lot. I did a little summary. So what do you think about just overall the clip and everything before we get into like the details of this?
Oh yeah, he did say a lot, and this is one of the moments where I'm kind of kicking myself because you know I go into these raw.
Yeah,
and
I took notes though. I took notes.
Like this is one of the ones where I wish I would have maybe peeked at it a couple times, maybe watched it a couple times because I got a lot of. He said a lot, and it's for me it's about making sure that I properly understand them because one of the things I try not to do is misquote people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one of the things I did notice, no COVID, is that I disagree with certain things. Of course I did. You know, I disagree with his attributes for the black community. But one of the biggest things that kind of rubbed me to start there is that he was being very vague. In a lot of what he was saying. And it bothers me when people do that because if they're truly aware of the time we're in, we don't have time or space for vagaries. Like we need you to be clear with what you're saying. Because the people that are watching you, especially if you're really trying to reach the masses, they're like, who's your audience? And so if the masses are your audience, you can't afford to be vague. So when we start talking about how they define intelligence, the whole first piece of it, you know, he essentially said to recollection, intelligence is the ability to essentially debate.
Well, if you are presented with new information, factual information that is contrary to what you originally believed, then being able to change your position based off the new information, the factual information that you've been presented,
right?
That's intelligence.
So I do agree that is a component of maturity. I don't necessarily think it's a component of intelligence, not a core component of intelligence. But then because we run into this problem of, well, what is a fact?
Yeah.
Like if we're both arguing two abstract theories.
Well, yes, that's that. But I'm guessing like going to the fact when he was talking about questioning science, and I because he did use it in like the scientific realm,
so right? And so I understand that, but it's still a relevant question because if we're talking, like if we're talking even scientifically. And you have your study saying one thing, and I have my study saying another thing. How have we established and determined fact?
There you have.
And so this is one of those like vagaries. Just like this is critically important because if we're having a heated debate about what to do, but we haven't agreed on how we're establishing facts, then we're not really doing anything. The other thing was, you know, the casual use of the term stupid because somebody might have a differing opinion than you, or somebody might have a differing viewpoint in terms of what is a fact than you, especially when you have not provided your definition of what a fact is. Like they made a joke out of drinking raw milk. I know several people that I consider intelligent that drink raw milk. I mean, humans drink raw milk. I'm not saying I drink raw milk, and I understand the potential health risk associated with drinking raw milk. What I'm pointing out here, though, is these two intellectuals use this as an example of stupidity when there are countering facts that would disagree with their assertion that to drink raw milk is to be stupid. So now I'm looking at you having this highbrow conversation. Like, are you really in a position to have this conversation?
Well, you know,
Because of how you're framing it. So I agree with him on the black girl magic and the divisiveness of it. I agree with him on resiliency strongly. I do believe black people are resilient. I got a problem with the other two, but I do believe black people are resilient. And I agree with him on several of the other things that he said. Personally, for me, intelligence is the ability to incorporate and adapt information to solve a problem. If we're not solving a problem, then I'm hesitant to call you smart. So then we run into the component of when the man asked him for a potential solution and he veered away from it, saying he didn't want to get into that.
yeah,
What's happening there?
right.
So if that's where I got to. Okay, so he thinks intelligence is just the capacity to debate, and if that's what we're doing, then that's not intelligent to me. That's not the core of it. Is it intelligent? Sure, yes. I'm not saying stupid people can debate, but I'm saying for me, the core of functional intelligence is being able to solve a problem.
Right.
So if we're not solving problems with the information, then none of the other things we're doing with it matters. But then, of course, I disagree with the assertion that Barack Obama somehow fundamentally changed America. And I have a problem with anybody that thinks that the election of Barack Obama in 2008 caused any sort of, cataclysmic shift in American culture.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to say it brought what was underneath the surface to the surface, I agree with that.
It was already there.
But it was already there. Barack Obama's being elected in 2008 didn't change anything. If anything, it let them know that we got to stop being undercover with it and start, really being more out front with it, which I guess you could say is a change. But the way they talk about change, they talk about it as if there was a structural shift in the culture and the mentality, the thinking and the being of the average American. And that is just not the case. You're living under a rock if that's what you believe.
Well,
Let's look at
the timeline though, because I'm glad you hit on that, because I was just about to say I was going to hit on that about I disagree with him. And I know a lot of it wasn't jest, but some of it wasn't.
Right.
Barack Obama is the emergence of ignorance and or white supremacy or bringing white supremacy to the surface. Barack Obama was elected in 2008, right? What was the state of social media in 2008?
Facebook was still on top, right? Or was it just starting?
2008.
MySpace.
Stuff was, social media was in its infancy. YouTube had probably
it was
a year. There was no Instagram, no Twitter.
Yeah.
May have been the infancy of Facebook.
Yeah, it was.
Right. So
MySpace was king, Black Planet.
So the social media environment had not yet been created.
Right.
So any ignorance that had been permeating in America, if you were not watching specific shows or listening to specific shows, radio, podcasts, whatever was out at the time, you had no idea. And you was only fed what you was fed because we had no alternatives like we have now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Donald Trump becomes president, we can put a mic, anybody and everybody could put a mic in front of stupid people and let those stupid people say stupid things. So, yeah, I disagree too that Barack Obama is not the catalyst of this emergence of ignorance. No, social media got better. And we were able to say, the average person was able to say more things, and more of the people who was in the shock lane or the investigative journalism lane was able to go out into the streets and put a camera or put a microphone in front of somebody's face get them to say something stupid, and then upload it to a social media outlet, and then that go viral, and then people share them. Like social media really changed the game of showing how ignorant. It exposed the ignorance. It didn't create the ignorance.
And I want to say one last thing, and then I'm gonna land my plane for real. Black Boy Joy is awful. I don't endorse that.
Who?
It's awful. Black Boy Joy.
What is that?
That's supposed to be the counter to Black Girl Magic is Black Boy Joy.
Oh man,
I don't
know. About a
know.
movie or a song or something.
No. That is supposed to be the Black Boy equivalent to Black Girl Magic. And no, it is no. I've yet to meet a man in real life because I've seen a lot of bots on the internet. I'm convinced they bots. I've yet to meet a man in real life that actually likes the phrasing Black Boy
When did
Joy.
that come out?
Oh, it was like maybe like a year or two ago.
I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I've heard it.
So with that being said, hey PC, bless us with some of that Black Boy Joy. What you think?
No. We ain't doing that. You know, it's funny because somebody tried to get me to do a workshop with that being in the title. So I had to switch the title around because that wasn't do black men deserve joy. Now there wasn't no black, I wasn't doing that crazy shit. Anyway, I got Joe writing this stuff down 5 minutes into the show.
I missed what you said.
Nothing. Anyway,
Did 22.
So I mean, Pat covered a lot of ground in terms of breaking down. So you did a damn good job for somebody who is just going off this clip in terms of reading into it. I don't think you needed to actually do any background, but I will give you one. One of the reasons that I think the brother speaks in vagaries is that he's a former politician. And so that speaks to why he doesn't give straight answers, and that he can speak in these vague terms and ambiguous terms that really, when you add it all up, is a bunch of word salad. I'm not trying to disrespect the brother because, you know, I think he's intelligent. And I think his play on work is because he thinks he's more intelligent than most people. And he is, because I'm pretty sure this is the first time his words have been countered in terms of what the actual meanings of some of the phrases were. And this is one of my biggest problems with academics. And I've been so this is perfect because I've been dealing with this because I work at an academic institution. And so because I have a problem, because I hear like our students come in and they have questions about life. And it curdles my toes, my feet, when I hear an academic start spewing off philosophy based on other academic works. Because if you know anything about me, I'm grassroots. We all grassroots. Our feet touch the ground. And so I get insulted when somebody whose feet don't touch the ground spew off rhetoric in terms of philosophical, points and views. And you can point to any of the great black scholars. I don't discount any of their work. But what about the practical application of the work? Because that's the thing that I focus on, is the practical application. So he couldn't give an example of a solution. And it's crazy because he was a politician that was actually running for governor in South Carolina at one point. If you can't create a solution or you don't want to talk about a solution, that basically speaks to where you want the conversation to stay. When we did the Independence Day project, when we do all of our other projects, whether it was the survey to, the community survey and things of that nature, the work we did with creating a nonprofit, it was solution oriented. When we came up with the code of conduct, it was solution oriented. And so when I hear people talk like that, I understand their rhetoric. I understand where they are, especially when they start quoting James Baldwin, who was another academic who, when you look at his work, it was always on a stage. It was always in a book. It was always on the television, but it was never in the streets where the people are. And no disrespect to him or his legacy or whatever, but I connect more with the people who actually were boots on the ground in regards to creating solutions for Black people. The academics basically speak from an ivory tower.
Yeah.
And therefore it's like the old adage, if you bought a house in Europe, you wanted a house on the second, you wanted if you bought an apartment or rented an apartment in Europe, you wanted one on the second floor, with a second floor window, because the first floor window was consumed with all the odors and foul smells that came from people just tossing garbage out the window. Yeah. And so the ivory tower folk want the second floor window. And that's how they see the world. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things that I thought was a cute play on words was when he talked about how every time Black people make progress, that it faces stiff opposition. Well, that was a cute way of getting around saying, Black people, you're at war.
Duh.
When you're warring on somebody, every time you make progress, they always combat that situation. There always is an affront to your progress when you're warring with the people. And so, but this is like I said, that's where I get into it with the academics, because when you sit there in a posh, like I picture academics sitting in the like they were sitting in a posh coffee shop arena, sort of a bookstore, debating over topics, because he's next, he says he's intelligent. Debating over topics, herbal tea, aromatherapy, candles in the bag. And being able to drink with their pinky out. You know what I'm saying? And deliberate over something while the world is crashing and coming down. It's kind of like going back to Rome, and it's kind of like going back to Rome and looking at the Senate. The Senate never took place in any battles. They never fought anybody. All they did was politic the whole time. And then they created policy. Now they will often go against the Caesar, but at the same time, they never really the games they played were passive aggressive, and so their hands never really got dirty in those particular games. And that's what I see with the politicians, with the academics when they talk about these particular these topics. I agree to a certain extent. Now he used the words wrong. It's not white supremacy, it's a white supremacist that feels as though equity or equality or whatever word they're using today is an affront or oppression. But it doesn't tell the whole story. Why do they feel that way? Well, they're designed in a country that's designed for them to win, have the advantage at every freaking turn. This is what happens when you're in a society that's warring on somebody else and they're winning the war. They're supposed to get the spoils of war as they get their way. So, but this is the type of stuff. So when I hear what I just heard, and like I said, and I saw the part, like I agree that the Black Girl Magic thing was specifically designed as a cursor to place Black women in a space where their image was elevated above Black men. And then we never addressed who did that.
They got a whole award show.
But right, well, and a lot of things that followed that specifically spoke to Black women. And in the community of Black men where we center Black women, we were told to basically bypass any of our prospects, any of our potential gains to push the women forward and lift the women up and push them forward. The problem is when we did that, it created a chasm. Go get Pat's book. It created a chasm between Black women. You know what I mean? So what is this? You know what I'm saying?
I see what you did there. No, that was good. That was good. I wasn't ready.
Well, and listen, we do one better because we all need to start standing on the shoulders of giants. You know
We
what I'm saying?
do. Absolutely.
Remember that. And remember, we stand on the shoulders of giants. See how we plug everything? We get everything free plugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but
And we needed to see that through the eyes of the social media revolutionary.
I'm just saying, because one day we project.
We got it all here.
One day we project to be independent, right?
Right. One day. One day.
We got it all here, man. We cooking with grease today. So, but the bottom line in all of this is, it disturbs me that people who have never smelt the ashes or never smelled the ambers of the ruins of our community to be the main ones spewing objectives in terms of who's intelligent enough to even be considered solution oriented. When I think about the liberators of the Black community and the African community period all over the world, I don't see a bunch of liberators. I see I don't see a bunch of academics out there on the front line. I see liberators. I see revolutionaries, and so and I see, Nat Turner wasn't what I wouldn't consider him an academic, but he led a revolution. He led a liberation push that scared the entire country. When you think about the what was now called the Haitian Revolution, which was really the First World War, and you think about the people who were leading that push, that was, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. He learned from Toya. Toya was one of the
Toya.
Yeah. So she was a warrior that was from what was it?
She was Benin.
Yeah.
She was the
homie Empire. She was one of the homie warriors. So that's where they learned their revolutionary traits and tactics and learned to not bend the knee, to be liberators. It takes me back to when Harriet Tubman had asked Frederick Douglass for a letter of reference. Frederick Douglass wrote her a letter stating that it is I who should be asking you, because you are the true warrior between the two of us, and you actually did the real work. I was an orator, and but basically I'm an academic. You were boots on the ground. During the Civil War, when the armies were marching north, the Confederate soldiers, and they were about to overtake Washington, D.C., Frederick Douglass rolled. He bounced. But then there's other parts of that war where Harriet Tubman not only joined the war in the war effort, she was called General Tubman because she was leading regiments into the different parts of the South and into across enemy lines and helping them navigate. Was actually leading them. So I think that we need to really think hard about who we get our talking points from. Not that we can't listen to the philosophies of those who sit in the background or those who come from these institutions, but we also need to pay attention to what can be practically applied to our situations as is right now.
Hey man, it feels good to have a theory that other people like. Make you feel smart. Yeah, man. They like
we talk about critical race theory.
They like my thoughts, man. So make me feel pat on my back. They make me feel good because they like my thoughts, man. You know what I'm saying? But I disagree with him. Oh yeah, hold on. I ain't got no cup, but let me put my pinky up. But so I disagree with him when he says that he thinks the white people believe equality is oppression. I don't think that they look at it as equality is oppression. I think they look at it as we're not giving up nothing we took.
They give no quarter.
Why would we give it back? If we fought hard to take it, why would we give it back just because you asked for it? Like why? How does it benefit the white power structure to give up any power. It doesn't make sense. To me, it's really just that simple. It don't make sense to do it. It don't make sense at all to acquiesce some of your power, to give the people that you said that you want to oppress, to give them some any kind of autonomy, give them any kind of room or anything to empower themselves. Why would you do that? Why would you let them have any gains? Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. If you truly are an oppressor, that's what you do. You oppress. Do you get mad at the ants? Do you get mad at the colony of ants for jumping on the grasshopper? No. That's what the ants do. The grasshopper got to learn how to fight. I'm just saying. So to me, it ain't even, it's not even in the direction that it's going. Like, they're not even looking at it like that. It's, we're not giving up any ground. This is ours. We fought hard to get it. And if you want it, you're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to fight hard to take it.
Well, white folk believe in two things, and I used to teach this in my classes. They believe in manifested destiny, and eminent domain. And
yeah,
and they believe in conquering. And once something's conquered, you don't let that thing rise up to conquer you again.
Right.
There was a film that I watched, and I used to talk about it a lot because it was a film that focused on like Cold War battles that were not cold. It's like a modern day private military espionage type saga, where one guy who was like a warlord, like a European warlord, was teaching his daughter to become like a general in their behalf. And one of the things that happened was when they had taken over, they overtook a village, and he asked her, well, what's the next plan? What's the plan? And I guess to see if she learned. And she said, we kill the men and the boys, and we leave the women and the children to, to sort of cower, but also we will be able to overtake them. We will be able to influence them because you see them as powerless, but they basically stating that they would chop off their head.
Yeah.
In order to expand whatever,
take away the power base, take away the security,
and take away their leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see a lot of the stuff that we dealing with in white supremacy, everything to them is a war. Right. I was just sitting on the couch for hours the other day watching storage wars. They're having a war over storage lockers that have been, you know what I'm saying? So you got the storage lockers, and they're having a bidding war over the storage lockers. I used to watch junkyard wars when they would have it on, where they would have a competition about building vehicles or some type of mechanical unit, and then they would literally crash and fight the things and see whichever one was left standing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Everything to them is a war. We often hear about the economic wars. And the ironic thing, and this is the craziest part about the intellectuals, right? These are the craziest part about the academics, right? The ones that come from the academy. They can talk about this here, and they can decipher it in literature. They can decipher it historically, but they can't seem to pinpoint it happening right now. And practically apply solutions to something they've been talking about for hundreds of years.
Right. I mean, my brother, see, you looking at the theory wrong. See, you trying to actually go from theory to application, my brother. Like, you got to look at the theory from a theoretical point of view, being theorized by somebody named Theo.
well then let's make it scientific. Then let's make it a scientific theory where you have to test it out.
Hey man, well, remember, this is coming from a person who don't want to come up with a solution.
And I thought that was telling. I thought that was telling because what led to us even creating projects like we do right now is we ask those questions. We
Right.
talk to brothers and sisters who have been freedom fighters for the last 40 and 50 years. And we had asked them, well, what is the expected outcome? And when we realized that they had been beaten down so bad that they didn't have one, we said, oh, hell no.
Yeah, because it's going back to what Pat said, and Pat was repeating what Dr. Amos Wilson and other scholars have said. You know, your education or the intellectual should be able to solve problems. And so remember, he made a bullshit sandwich because he said we're not gonna talk about solutions about what to do, but we're gonna give black people attributes. I'm gonna say it my way. He gave black people superpowers. So he was helping to create this superhero, this black people superhero. They represent black people. So our powers are resilience, faithfulness, and grace. And so to me, that's an equation. So resilience times faithfulness times grace equals powerless.
Yeah, because none of all those things are passive in nature.
Right.
To be resilient means you can take an ass whooping and keep standing, which we often see in Negro with old films when black people are getting their ass whooped and the music playing.
Right. We resilient. We pressed on through the whooping, sir.
And then we start singing, right?
Right. I guess that's the faithfulness.
Well, the faithfulness is, I guess, to never give up on each other, which I can understand that part, but he never really defined what he meant by those things.
Yeah, because that's what I think. Faithful to what? Because it's like after everything is stripped of you, you remain faithful. Faithful to what?
And what's graceful?
Who are we giving grace to?
Right, because we've given enough grace to white folk. We've given far too much grace to everybody that stands in opposition of us moving forward and liberating ourselves.
Well, you just made me remember. So you alluded to him saying faithfulness to each other, but we're not. We've never been like African people. As far as massive African people have never been faithful to each other, but we have been faithful to our oppressors.
Yeah.
And we've been faithful to the religions that they gave us.
Well, the main religion they gave us that we don't talk about is the religion of white supremacy.
Well, that's the world's number one religion, but most black people don't look at white supremacy as a religion. They look at white supremacy as
a system.
Yeah, a system, but it's greater than the system. Even Neely Fuller talks about it in the systematic form and in the religious form. Like that is the ultimate religion that dictates how even other spiritual systems are practiced.
Well, you just said the magic word. Religion is something you practice. And so we can feel like we worship a certain way. But our religion is we practice white supremacy.
Well, white people practice white supremacy and use religion. We practice religion and are victimized by white supremacy because we practice religion and we do practice white supremacy as well.
Yeah. We take it and we move we say we're liberators, but look at what happened and the turn happened in the 70s, right? The turn happened in the late 60s, early 70s. So from 1968 to probably about 70, probably about a good decade, right? You had the rise of those who were the children of Malcolm, as they like to call them, the ones who utilized Malcolm X's message in order to push their and start their movements. The Black liberation. That's literally when you saw the Black Power movement take heat.
Black nationalism going to another level.
Right. We talked about when the March in Selma, when Stokely Carmichael, who later became Kwame Ture, first uttered the words Black Power, right, in the rally. And so And then they started expelling all the white folk out of their groups. So one of the things that took place was you started to see the operations, not just COINTELPRO, but also the COINTELPRO papers, in which they identified key characteristics that they needed to be in opposition of, to prevent Black folk from coalescing or coming together. So they had the steps where they would prevent the next Black Messiah. They named the people who had the charisma to be the next Black Messiah. They named Stokely Carmichael. They named Malcolm X at the time. They named it was somebody else. It wasn't Martin Luther King, ironically. But they named several different names of brothers who they said had the charisma to help arouse people. They named it could have been. It could have been. I'm not sure. So I don't want to say for sure because I hadn't seen. I hadn't had my eyes on the list in a long. The COINTELPRO papers. I hadn't seen the list in a long time, so I don't want to just say it is and it wasn't. I think King was on the list actually, but another thing too, is they talked about the radical the push to end the radicalization of Black people through these radicalized groups, and so they came up with plans to destroy the Black Panther Party, which at that particular time became the most visible outfit, for the Black community, because there were other ones too. In Philadelphia, we had the Revolutionary Action Movement. You know what I mean? And so there were a bunch of national movements at that particular time. Ironically, I keep saying that, what made the Black Panthers public enemy number one? It wasn't them marching on the steps of Sacramento, the capital of California at the time, with the shotguns and the rifles. It was when they started the Breakfast Club. Well, I mean, not the Breakfast Club, the preschool breakfast program for the children. And the CIA, the FBI was talking about trying to poison the food so that the children would get sick, and then we'll blame it on the Black Panther Party. But more importantly, they warred on Liberators Day. You had open, sanctioned hit squads going out there and either murdering those brothers and sisters that was in the fight or imprisoning them. And that's how you get the situation that happened with Assata Shakur. All right? Because they were trying to murder her and they did murder her husband at the time. So the fight got beaten out of Black people because all of the government's resources came down on those particular groups. Even Tupac's father talks about how him and Afeni Shakur had to be put in safe houses, and they were out of connection with each other, out of contact with each other, because they were being hunted by the government at the particular time.
Yeah.
So when you look at the liberators back then, the ones who survived, the ones who came out unscathed, they became politicians.
Yeah.
Some of them became mayors of Atlanta.
Yeah, they integrated to the system.
Some of them distinguished college professors who are speaking and teaching to this day.
In my opinion, the ones who they viewed as the biggest threats were either eliminated by taking their lives or incarcerated.
Eliminated, incarcerated, or indoctrinated.
Right. Well, yeah, the indoctrination, but I think, and this just me, I think the ones they saw as the greater threats. They wanted them.
Oh, they got them out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard the horror stories about them bringing hitmen into the prisons, how they would fire hose, whole prison cells trying to drown the political prisoners, and how this would go on for years.
So I see the COINTELPRO papers it's a book.
Yeah, it's a whole document.
Okay, yeah. So I Googled it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a policy. I just read the highlights.
Okay, I'm trying to download it and I'm sending it to you all. But so he talked about the multicultural democracy and leaving Black men behind. Pat, you can hear us? You good?
Yeah, I can hear y'all.
Okay. talked about multicultural democracy leaving black men behind. I don't think that's a multicultural democracy leaving black men behind. That's white supremacy in the form of white people who act like they from another culture outside of the culture of white supremacy, and other brown people who still represent the culture of white supremacy. So it's not necessarily multicultural. It's viewed as multicultural, but really it's one culture, which is the culture of white supremacy, because the object is, if you see black people as this threat and you warn on black people, to make them weak. So what one way to make them weak is, like we talked about earlier, disabling the men, separating the men from the women and the children, especially the women and the girls. The little boys, you have to take them out. But the girls, young girls, and the women, you can manipulate them. You can do all the things that are vulnerable now. But the men and boys, you got to take them out. But this multicultural democracy that we're only 13 to 14% of this democracy. What type of power or stance do we have in this democracy, especially when we willingly give up more than 90% of our votes to one party? So of course, black men are going to be left behind in this so-called multicultural democracy, because our counterparts are game with helping us be left behind. We got to talk about that.
But I think that gets into, and can y'all hear my background?
No, you good.
No, you straight.
Okay. I think what that gets to is something we've been talking about for years, and I really wish, like, y'all don't know how long we've been having these conversations. The community as a, like, I look at any black person that champions democracy
You crazy.
interestingly. Like, just like, 'cause on the surface, I understand it, and even with some level of depth, if we doing on the depth scale and we going 1 to 10, 10 being super shallow and 1 being the deepest part of the ocean, you know, I can register that idea to about a 7. Anything lower than a 7, and I'm looking at you funny, because why would any person that's a member of a group that's 13 to 14% of the population champion something where majority rules?
Right.
It doesn't. But I understand representative democracy, but I also understand the power of controlling the margins. And we talk about this every election cycle. That 13, 14% is very powerful when the other 85% is split even.
Right.
But when they're not split even, when the majority is pretty much made up their minds, you have no power.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because even in this election, the majority of black people showed up, and the candidate that they wanted to win still didn't win because the majority showed up.
And that's part of the narrative, and we've been talking the last few weeks about how narratives are weapons, and the people are the bullets. The narrative is that black people control the vote.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
you're right. Yeah, you're right. That is the narrative, that black people control the vote. Black people have power in manipulating the vote. Black people, especially on the Democratic side or whatever, black people can tip the scales. And yeah, if like you said, if the splitting up is even, but it's like, even in this democracy that we're supposed to be operating in, like, when have it just make me, when have black men not been the target? When have black men not been left out in American history, on this continent? When have black men not been left out? When have we not been the target?
I think the thing with that, Joe, is I think black men have got to do the same thing that we constantly tell the black community to do, which is understand that Like, I don't know black men are being left out of this malicious target program to eliminate us. I think black men are being left out because nobody's just thinking about us because we're an NF, we're a non-factor. Like
They
we
don't
don't matter. We
disabled
we
us.
don't
They disabled us.
right.
Well,
So from that perspective, how do you become a factor? I think that's the question we ask is who do we want to be a factor to, and how do we become a factor to those
You want
people?
you want to know how we can become a factor? Get our ass out of the coffee shops and magenta suit coats and get in the street.
I think one of the things too we need to, because it is happening now, but it's a slow surge, it's a small surge.
Cause
But
shout out to the black men who are doing for the black men. Shout out to you all.
yeah, I mean, listen, I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing because I wander into the black manosphere a lot, and so when you listen to people like BGS Itmore and you listen to our good friend of the show, Dr. Tia Johnson, and you listen to the black male agenda in terms of what black men have created in terms of our political needs and our wants and our and things that create a policy of protection for us. You start to see that it's starting to make a difference, and it's starting to make a difference because I think that right now, as Pat said, we hadn't been seen as relevant, mostly because we've been docile, we've been moved to the back, and purposefully moved to the back of all political discussions. We've been weaponized. We have been the targets of all the weapons, and they've even figured out how to weaponize us against each other. So I think, but what you're starting to see now is the potential for what could be a reckoning for black men in those particular spaces. We still have some work to do, but you can see the beginnings of what looks to be promising in regards to finally black men centering and prioritize the needs of black men.
Well, that's where it is.
Good.
Say it again, please. Say it again for the people in the back. I don't think that hurt you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say for the people outside too. Black men starting to prioritize black men and centering black men in our needs. And it's the one thing, because we have been often told that we have to be selfless in our contributions and our utility and so forth, but we are not allowed to look for something else. And black men are just taking charge of their own dominion in terms
save
of
ourselves.
And there's actually a SYBM,
Save yourselves, black men.
Yeah, so SYSBM, yes. So that's why you see a lot of the conversations now about the sign language, the shaming, the insults, the guilt, the need to be right, to try to push black men back into that subservient position. But I often say to men, because I have this conversation with young brothers, if you're a man, how does a man let anybody else tell you as a man what to do?
That's what I'm just saying. If you're the leader,
right? And this whole concept of leading properly and things of that nature, name me one leader that hasn't failed and hadn't given the opportunity and the grace to, learn from that failure to become a better leader. So I think you're starting to see that. One of the things that I don't agree with when we said is that when black men remove themselves, we forget we're still, that we still have to be part of the political process. I believe he said something of that nature. I don't want to misquote him. When you abstain, that is being part of the process. And I think we got to stop trying to pressure black men into being in these positions where your participation matters regardless. Well, our participation is to choose not to participate. They're about to have they're contemplating a worker strike at the college that I'm at, for the teachers and faculty. So what does that mean? That means they came to the table to negotiate, which is when you want to go vote, you're negotiating. Well, what are you going to do for my vote? And if they don't get what they want, and I'm talking about the teachers, the faculty, whatever, if they don't get what they want, then they're going to remove themselves from the table. That's the strike. You know what I'm saying? So, in removing yourself, that's participation. When we talk about the Montgomery bus boycott, what did black people do? Remove themselves from the buses.
To white people buses.
Yeah. Now they should have never gone back because you had two black companies that could have used the, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is you removing yourself from the equation, especially when they still see a slither of maybe needing you, even if it's not for the numbers' sake, if it's just for propaganda's sake, they might still, but you don't give them your power freely.
We keep allowing the liberals, the Democrats, to convince the masses of us that we should not sit out. And we know why they do that, because they want the vote. And they try to shame you and call you ignorant and all that stuff for sitting out the vote. And it is a right. Like, it's a choice. It's one of the choices. And it's just, black men, look at here. I don't know what the hell a lot of us got going on, but it's not working. And if we are literally looked at as the weaklings of the men in the world. We're looked at, our women are viewed as stronger than we are. And we are cool with that. There's a lot of black men cool with our women being viewed as stronger than us. Our black women being respected more.
The backbone of the community.
And it's like, well, damn. So if they the backbone of the community, anybody can come in our community anytime and kick their feet up. And that's exactly what they do. That's how you get conversations like this. And being afraid to come up with solutions. And I'm gonna use the word afraid to come up with solutions. Hey man, why should anybody respect us? Why? So you gonna keep having conversations like this? You ain't gonna do nothing about it. I'm just saying, man, look, we gotta start looking. First of all, we gotta educate ourselves to solve our problems. And all right, I'm gonna just say it, fuck it. Black men, we're gonna have to drop our nuts and tell black women to get the hell out of our ways when we're raising our young boys too. Get the hell out of our way when we're raising our young boys. Yep, this rough. Yep, you don't like it. So what? We're raising men, not women. We're raising men. The programming and the experience we have is vastly different than anything you can imagine. We don't care about your input because we're not raising you all. We're raising the second, third, fourth generations of us. And we live in a different world than you do. So sit your ass down when we're raising our boys, just like we're going to sit our ass down when you're raising your young girls. We're not going to get in you all's way when you all are raising your girls. But black men, we got to stop acquiescing everything to the women. The Farrakhan lecture I put out on Tuesday, that's one thing you talked about. Like, even the system of white supremacy overlooking the black man for the black woman because they understand that's going to cause more strife down the line. So they get the women saying, well, our men are not good enough because they don't make enough and they can't provide for us and all these things. Now we are at each other's throat, but a lot of that is because we keep refusing to drop our nuts and stand up and be men. Nobody gonna respect us as long as we keep operating the way we operate. Don't nobody like no soft-ass men. Don't nobody respect no soft-ass men. The hell are we doing? I'm just saying, man. Y'all got any closing thoughts?
Nah, I think you pretty much wrapped it up right there, bro. We good to go.
I got a lot, but that'll be a whole nother hour, so we good to go.
Hey, man. Y'all already know what it is. Like the video, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure as many people as possible can get this. Man, y'all start thinking beneath the surface. Stop just going with what make you feel good. It make me feel good. I like, boy, that boy talk good. That boy made me feel good what he said, and you got nothing out of it. At some point, we got to grow the hell up. But yeah, like the video, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure you continue to support us. Thank you to everybody who's supporting us. Thank you to everybody who's supporting On the Shoulders of Giants. Thank you to everybody who's supporting PC. Thank you to everybody who's supporting Pat. One of the main things why I want to have my brothers on here is so they can share in the growth of this channel and be able to enhance their platforms as well. So please reach out to them individually and support them individually as well, because you know they're definitely a part of the growth of this channel, but I want them to make sure that they get the love and support that they have. And, you know, PC been out here in these streets longer than we have. So I want to make sure that he get the flowers, love, and support that he deserves. And they both give back mightily to their communities. So please continue to support them. You know, FetLifeStation.com, check it out. ThePax.org, check it out. On the shoulders1.com, check it out. All the links in the description to support us. We love you all. We catch y'all on the other side.